As always, welcome to my channel. I'm Rebecca, and this is Rust and Roses DIY. Today I have a couple of exciting projects I think you'll really enjoy. One is sort of finishing up my Christmas theme, and then the other one is a seasonal changing door round that I think you'll probably be interested in. I haven't seen anyone do one exactly like this. I've seen some interchangeable things, but not exactly like this. So I hope you enjoy, and thanks for stopping by. My first project today is I'll call this my Santa silhouette picture. I had this form that used to be one of those chalkboards with a little chef holding the tray on it. A friend of mine gave me years ago. And then when I got my crafting shed, I decided I would actually try to do something with it. So I tried to use my heat gun to loosen some of the glue that the little chef was holding on with, but that did not work out. I thought maybe I could use him somewhere else later, but that did not work out. So then I started sanding it, and I guess because of age, the back wanted to pop out, but I love the shape of it. So I decided I was going to make an old-fashioned window with the spindles at the top. And then I was very excited that I had just gotten my new IOD Santa sleigh mold, and I was very excited to use that. So I thought, let's just make a window and have a silhouette of Santa leaving the house after he's delivered all of the presents to the kids. So what you see me here doing is measuring and trying to figure out exactly where my spindles need to go. I'm using the flat bamboo skewers to make the the cross pieces in the window, but the spindle was a little bit too long to reach the top, so I had to double up on that and make it two skewers instead of one, make it like a wider window sill or something like that, so that the skewer, the spindle would actually adhere to the bamboo sticks. So that's what I'm doing here, and then I'm going to measure and clip those off. And I used my miter shears to cut those down to size, and then I used wood glue and hot glue to keep them in place until they could dry. And then I used a little bit of tape to hold them together until they could be completely dry. I did let that dry overnight because I wanted it to be as sturdy as possible, and those spindles just kept moving everywhere on me. So I did dry it overnight before I even attempted to paint it. As you can see here, when I tried to clamp the bamboo sticks together, it was not successful, let's just say. I won't say it was a disaster, but things went flying everywhere. So then we had to basically just step back, take a minute and a deep breath, and try again. So that's when I decided to use the tape to hold it together until it could dry, because the clamps did not want to stay in place and it kept popping my bamboo sticks all over the place. So we're going to give it another try. So right here, what I'm doing is I'm going to make the cross pieces to form the bottom portion of the window now that I have my spindles up top to form the oval. So I'm going to cut my bamboo skewers down to size, hot glue and wood glue those in place, and then let them dry overnight before I try to maneuver it anymore. Now that the window is completely dry, let it sit overnight. I am going to use chalk paint in the Waverly Adirondack white to paint the entire thing, because I do want to do a little bit of distressing on this to make it look like an old um, an old window that you would look out. So now we're going to get it painted up. This is the new IOD Iron Orchid Design mold of Santa in his sleigh with all of the toys. And I was so excited when it finally came in the mail. I ordered it from Etsy, found it on Etsy, and I just couldn't wait to try it out. So I thought, what better mold to use than with my window that I hope to make a silhouette. So the first thing I'm going to need to do, since it is new and it will be the first time I've ever used it, is I'm going to dust it with um, cornstarch, making sure I use a generous amount, especially the first time, since this is the first time I'm using it. I'm going to use a very generous amount, and then I will turn it over and bump some of it out to make sure that it doesn't stick to my clay. Then I'm going to take my DOS air dry clay, um, get a good size amount in my hand, and work it back and forth for a little bit until I get it warm and pliable. I love these iron orchid design molds because they have that little lip around the edge that makes it so easy to take away the excess clay and leaves you with such a clean line. They're just a joy to work with. If you don't have any, I would encourage you to at least try even at some of the small ones, but it's like these are just phenomenal molds. I love them. Absolutely love them. So I'm pressing my clay into the mold, and then I'm going to pinch around the edges as I go, pressing down as flat as I can possibly get it to make sure that I get all of the details in the mold. And then I'm going to um, take off the excess around the edges, and then we will eventually unmold our Santa sleigh. I lost just a little bit of footage, but I did wind up painting Santa's sleigh with black chalk paint. And then I just dusted it with white wax. And now I'm just applying my antique wax, applying it, wiping it back to give it that rustic and vintage look. And then I'm going to sand everything down until I get it to the point to where I actually like it. And then I'm going to start looking at my placement for how Santa's going to be flying through the sky. Then I have fairy lights that I'm going to put I wanted to make him look like Santa was flying through the sky, so I made him coming from the back of his sleigh around to the bottom of the a window in several strands, and I just used some hot glue to keep that in place. And then I'm going to finish up with another set of fairy lights at the very top of the window to make it look like he is flying through the night sky. And here is the finished window. As you can see, I've glued the sled on with E6000, clamped that, allowed that to dry. And then here you see it hanging. I've dimmed the light so that you can see the fairy lights on the window, but you can see the silhouette of Santa flying through the sky. Thanks for watching. So I'm starting this project off with a 15-inch round by 1-inch thick piece of wood from Lowe's. And I'm going to sand that down on all sides and especially around the edges so that once I get ready to paint it, it will be smooth. And here I'm taking the thinner 15-inch rounds and I'm going to cut those in half to allow me to attach I'm calling them the half rounds. I'm going to attach those to the bottom with magnets so that this will be interchangeable. There will be one for spring, summer, fall, and winter, so that there's literally one door hanger and you just change the seasonal half rounds. I'm going to mark off the area that I want to paint on the top of the round. The top of the round will be painted with black acrylic paint, and then I'm going to stain using my wax. I'm going to stain the bottom. It depends on the customer's request. Sometimes I'll paint the top and the back black, and then wax the bottom portion. Some people want the back waxed, but the bottom portion waxed and the black on the top. So it just depends on individual taste. Excuse me. We'll get those painted up, making sure that we get a nice crisp line using our painter's tape. So here we're going to get the half rounds painted up for one for spring, one for summer, one for fall, and then one for winter. Now, 3 of these 4 I actually mixed myself. They're like custom colors. You can paint these any color you want, but these are the colors that I chose for my 4 seasons. Now that those are all painted and dried, we're going to begin our decoupage. Now, these are just prints that I found on Google for searching images for particular things, and these are just the ones that I chose. But again, you can customize these to anything you want. And then I did a little fussy cutting, and then I decoupaged them onto the half round. So while our decoupage is drying, we're going to put our welcome stencil on. And this is just a stencil that I had ordered from Amazon. And I'm just using, on this particular one, I'm using the linen chalk paint by Waverly. And I use my stencil brush, of course. Get a little bit of paint on there, dab off the majority of it, and then I just dab until I get that first coat on. I let that dry just a little bit, and then I go back over it in almost like a swirling motion to make sure that I get good coverage on all my letters. Once I have that completed and I remove the stencil, then I'm going to connect my bridges and make sure that I have one solid word going across for welcome. I wanted to add a little something extra to a couple of these. So on the summer one, um, I cut out my letters or my sayings or whatever with my Cricut. Majority of them were heat transfer vinyl that I actually ironed onto the half round. There were a couple that I used just regular permanent vinyl. I put my sayings on, and then it still looked a little bare, so I decided I do have some molds. So I used my molds to do air dry clay mold in a sunflower, and then on the one for fall, I did a pumpkin, a small pumpkin. So that's what you see me doing here. And I actually will put those on in their raw form and paint them while they're on the actual half round themselves to make sure that I don't get any cracking. So last steps for my seasonal door changing, whatever thingamajigs, whatever you want to call them. I have to put the magnets on, and I'm going to place those, spread them out along the bottom half. And I'm using E6000. I'm going to add just a dot, literally, of glue on each of the magnets and place them down. And then, in order to make sure that placement on the half round magnets is correct, I take a magnet. Once I have my magnets down, I take an additional magnet, and I just put it near the magnet so that it grabs the way it's supposed to. This is the only way they're gonna hold the half rounds in place. So the very first one of these that I ever made was, my I learned my lesson that way. I went ahead and glued all the magnets on, but then when I tried to put it together, some of them repelled the others. So you have to make sure that they're attracted to each other. So I just literally take once I had those locked in place, I literally took additional magnets and put on top, and then put a dollop of glue and laid the half round down on it, and then placed something heavy on it to let it dry. And then the last steps, I just got to cut some ribbon. I usually cut my ribbon about 13, 14 inches in length. I use 3 different types of ribbons. I use a large wide stripe black, a thin black, and then a burlap. I'm going to add a little bit of sisal as well, just to give it some character. And then all I have to do is make my bow, and then I will staple some greenery to the top of it before I place the bow on, but I staple everything on to make sure that it's sturdy. And then I'll put a handle using my wired, I guess you call it, it's not wired ribbon, it's like a wire that's covered in a paper, but it's very stiff and it holds up very well. I'll also staple those to the back of the round, and then once that's done, it is completely finished. Here's the final reveal for the seasonal changing door round. And these are very customizable. You could use any colors you want, any design you want. All you have to do is, follow the steps and then make it your own. But if you stuck around this long, thank you so, so much for watching my video. Um, if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to my channel to help me grow. Um, Give me a like, thumbs up, whatever you like. And I certainly hope you've enjoyed the content today. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.